Well, oh my goodness. It just keeps getting weirder. I think that's the word I want to say when it comes to this Michigan scandal, guys. We've got more stuff, including the first thing I want to address, which was really Michigan's survival instinct kicking in and kind of pushing back against the whole idea that what they're doing is giving them some crazy competitive advantage. Now, what Michigan has done is responded via this. You can see an updated story, this coming out yesterday. Sports Illustrated is able to publish partly redacted documents showing how Michigan opponents decoded Wolverines' signals and matched them with run and pass concepts. And what was going around yesterday was those two pages right there, supposedly the Michigan plays from 2022. And the idea is, oh, other teams within the Big Ten potentially colluded against Michigan. Other coaches were sharing this around. Therefore, Michigan is trying to prove that, you know what we did really wasn't that bad. Maybe it was slightly worse than what everyone else was doing, but everyone's practically doing the same thing. That's Michigan's argument. This reminds me exactly of the Houston Astros situation where they bang on the trash cans and then they say, look, the Boston Red Sox are using the Apple Watches, the Yankees are using technology, you cheat, and then you blame everyone else. That argument's not going to hold up, and I thought this was a good summary of it. So to recap, Michigan has been caught cheating, doing advanced scouting, and videoing opponents to steal signs and be able to identify the hot signal caller, which is super important. And yes, so guys, if we can actually break this down, the Michigan argument to me falls on deaf ears when you actually look at what they did. Connor Stallions, in all likelihood, although we still don't know, which I think is ridiculous, but in all likelihood, was on the Central Michigan sideline. Why would you take that risk if Michigan is coming out and saying, every coach knows everyone's signs, this is ridiculous? If that's already going on within college football, and I'm sure that is what's going on, absolutely. It's just like I'm sure Alabama is sharing signs with other opponents and talking to other teams. Why wouldn't Michigan feel the need to be this crazy to where you send one of your so-called recruiting analysts, which is really just a ridiculous title considering what Connor Stallions did, to Central Michigan's sideline during their game the day before a Michigan game? Obviously, there is something that you cannot catch, or there's a reason that you would do this, and possibly it's because of the hot signal caller, which is super important. In response, a friend of the Harbaugh family, David Elson, who is pictured below, shopped a spreadsheet of Michigan calls not confirmed to be legit, by the way, just a spreadsheet and a story from a Harbaugh family friend, and finally got someone to bite and publish the story. And of course they're going to publish it. It's going to get views. I think the AP picked up on it. Don't forget, this was run through compliance and doesn't break any rules. And yeah, so Michigan understands that it doesn't break any rules, but Michigan also understands that this story and their potential punishment, it is all about narrative. Right, Michigan is trying to take control of the narrative by saying and telling the general public, this is going on everywhere, what we did. It might have been a little bit different with Connor Stallions. I mean, my question to Michigan would be, okay, if you really, what you did was you think it's legal, why don't you find Ohio State's version of Connor Stallions? Show me an Ohio State staffer on the sideline of an opposing team in a disguise, watching with, a little camera on their glasses. That isn't confirmed, but I mean, my goodness, we pretty much think that's him. Why don't you show me something like that? Obviously, they're not going to be able to produce it because Ohio State isn't doing it, or, I mean, I would hope Ohio State wouldn't be doing something like that, but they're trying to shift it and create a false equivalency, and you can see if you actually look into who's writing up on all this stuff, who's reporting on it, it is all people tied to Jim Harbaugh. So it's not surprising, and you can certainly understand what Michigan is trying to do. Take control of the public narrative. Remember, the only reason the Big Ten is really acting on this right now is because of public outrage. They could very easily, if there was less public outrage, they could very easily say, we're going to table this until the offseason. We've got two potential playoff teams here, Michigan and Ohio State, and that still might end up being what happens if Michigan does pursue legal action, which they very well might. you could get a situation where they suspend Harbaugh, Michigan pushes back against it, and possibly Harbaugh ends up missing no time. It just all depends. Now, when it comes to that situation, the update that we got here, this came out a few hours ago. Sources, the Big Ten expects a response from Michigan on the notice of discipline by the end of the day on Wednesday. So the end of today. Don't expect any ruling by the Big Ten on Wednesday, as they are expected to take time to absorb Michigan's response. So we thought maybe it could come today because it was 48 hours. Well, apparently, very likely it's going to come tomorrow. Today was the deadline for Michigan's response to take notice. As Pete notes, the Big Ten ruling likely will come on Thursday at the earliest. The league's sportsmanship policy states discipline is not subject to appeal. Oh, so if that's true, does that mean if they suspend Harbaugh for 2 or 3 games, they're not going to be able to potentially appeal that? Even if they do decide to sue, it'll be interesting. Either way, that's kind of the update on that. And then we got another weird situation with Connor Stalions. Now, apparently, Stalions purchased a $500,000 home and started some type of vacuum fixer-upper company. And apparently, the homeowners association was getting pissed off about it. They were mad. They told him to knock it off. He's got all these vacuum cleaners right outside his house. A lot of people also wondering if he's got a salary of $55K, how is he affording a $500,000 home? There's been speculation maybe his parents have money. We really don't know how that ended up happening. But the juicy stuff with this, Blake Korum now potentially tied to some type of shell company with Connor Stalions that's based out of Wyoming. And what's interesting is Blake Korum immediately lawyers up and says he has no tie to Connor Stalions in terms of business. But then you see this Instagram post, and you can see in the caption, "I'm a walking business. I should be an LLC. Hashtag BC2. Meaning Blake Korum 2 LLC. Blake Korum, who appears as a co-owner of a Wyoming-based company with Connor Stalions, says he was unaware of that supposed partnership and that he had no business relationship with Stalions. Korum says he has an attorney handling the situation, which is truly shocking considering that Instagram post and the reference to the LLC with Connor Stalions. I guess Blake Korum is also now using the excuse that Stalions is a completely rogue weirdo and I guess used his name to create some type of company based out of Wyoming. Obviously, this goes much deeper. We're honestly just at the surface. I mean, we haven't even gotten into the computer crimes with Michigan, possibly doing some stuff with Ohio State's practice footage. But either way, guys, we will see what happens with Michigan. I would still say just up front, the Blake Korum thing, you can kind of say it probably doesn't even matter anyways, considering the NIL world we live in. I mean, you've got boosters just cheating every single day. SEC boosters, Big Ten boosters, AC. I mean, they're all cheating. So it's like, well, that's whatever. 3 years ago, this would have been a bigger story with Blake Korum, like with the car and everything like that. Now, to me, it just kind of doesn't matter unless there's some type of connection to where Stalions was getting money through this company, which could fund his operation. That would be the only way. And there is still the argument they're trying to say, well, Harbaugh didn't know about it. That's not an argument that you can make. If you're the CEO of a company and the company is a Ponzi scheme, but you say, oh, I don't know about it, that just doesn't work. Like Harbaugh, if you benefit from cheating and you're the literal head football coach of the team that's cheating, obviously you are going to face discipline. It like him knowing about it or not is inconsequential. It doesn't matter. It's not an argument. There's nothing to talk about. The thing is, the cheating, that's the problem. Connor Stalions, and this is why Michigan is doing this whole thing while other teams are doing it too. We're not talking about the same situation. We're not talking about coaches sharing signals. We're talking about going overtly on the sideline, and shockingly that we even have this footage of potentially Connor Stalions just completely illegally cheating when that is absolutely against the rules. You cannot have a staff member at an opposing game, let alone dress up in a disguise on a sideline. This was all obtained legitimately. We've been really good at it, Stein stealing, getting stuff off TV copy. People didn't go to sites to obtain intel. We did it legally, like stealing it from a third base coach. So that is in response. So you can see Purdue, Ohio State, Rutgers shared Michigan signs according to sources. And the context to that, you could pick any teams in the nation. Like, you could probably report tomorrow that, oh, Alabama, two other teams shared Auburn signs. And is it really that big of a bombshell? No, this is just a diversion by Michigan, and it is smart. You have to do something because it is based on perception. It is a narrative thing. The Big Ten is being pressured by the general public. That is why they're actually going to do something against the university during the season. Otherwise, they would for sure just table this until the offseason. But I think the big key thing right now is Michigan's response to the Big Ten and what the Big Ten ends up doing very likely tomorrow or Friday in regards to Harbaugh. The expectation would be about a 2-game suspension, which a lot of people would be pissed off at because Harbaugh would be back for the Ohio State game. But this is completely independent of the NCAA and their investigation. But my expectation, based on the intel, based on what people are saying, is potentially a 2-game suspension. The other thing I want to talk about that's just so ridiculous. You guys watched the college football ranking show last night. If you did, you heard basically the entire panel say, we don't want to punish the players, the poor Michigan players. Well, if this stuff is actually true and Michigan's been illegally cheating for multiple years, they've indirectly punished every single opposing team's player by blatantly cheating and depriving opposing teams of opportunities because they've been playing and doing things illegally and having a higher knowledge. So really, like, the whole idea, we don't want to punish the Michigan players. I'm sorry, but the actions of Michigan's coaching staff, they've already punished opposing players, and it is what it is. The Michigan players are just collateral damage at this point. It does sound bad, but that's just the reality of the situation. Either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.